Hello and welcome to Defence Line, a weekly program on defence, security and more. In this episode of Defence Line, we discuss the controversy over partial revocation of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act from the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Chief Minister Omar Abdullah's decision to withdraw the act from 4 districts of the state has not only widened the rift between the National Conference and the Congress, but also sparked a war of words between the various stakeholders. Should AFSPA be revoked from the 4 districts of the state which have enjoyed comparative peace for the past few months, or will this weaken Army's operations against the militants? This is what we discuss in Defence Line today. We spoke on this contentious issue separately with 2 retired Army officers who were co-commanders in J&K after the enforcement of the Special Powers Act in J&K some years ago. Lieutenant General J.S. Dhillon, who commanded the Srinagar Corps, which oversees all operations in the Kashmir Valley, and Lieutenant General Tej Sapru, who commanded the Nagrota Corps, which is in charge of operations in the area south of Pir Panjal, including Jammu. Besides, we also spoke to a retired officer who was Deputy Commander of a Rashtriya Rifles sector in Kupwara, Brigadier Bhupinder Singh. We also spoke to Muhammad Saeed Malik, a political commentator, to get the civilian point of view from the valley. But before that, let us look at this report.
Chief Minister Omar Abdullah has again stirred the hornet's nest in Jammu and Kashmir. Omar has brought back to life the much debated issue of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. The Chief Minister has publicly announced that the AFSPA and the Disturbed Areas Act are set to go from certain areas of the state. Though Omar claims that he enjoys the centre's mandate on the issue, the Home Ministry is yet to make its stand clear. The Congress has virtually taken on Omar for his statement, advising him to consult all stakeholders. The opposition BJP has however deemed it imprudent to lift the AFSPA only on political compulsions. The consensus over the proposal to withdraw the AFSPA from some Jammu and Kashmir areas still eludes. Even as the future of the act is being debated, the Army's reservations have come in the public domain. The security forces have lost more than 5,000 of their men in the past 20 years in Jammu and Kashmir and have been at the receiving end in the political diction of Kashmiri leaders. Many in South Block warn that a partial withdrawal could tie the hands of the forces dealing with infiltration in J&K and trigger similar demands from the northeast. Army Chief General V.K. Singh has stated inputs have been given and it is up to the Home Ministry to make a decision. The Armed Forces Act gives the Army the powers to shoot and search without a warrant. This in turn has led to alleged human rights violations in the valley, with Kashmiri separatists terming it as draconian. The 1958 Act was extended to Jammu and Kashmir in 1990 and is currently in 12 districts. If a consensus emerges, it could be lifted from Srinagar, Budgam, Samba and Jammu.
I first met Lieutenant General Sapru to discuss this and other contentious issues. General Sapru, the J&K Chief Minister Omar Abdullah wants Armed Forces Special Powers Act to be revoked from the 4 districts which have enjoyed comparative peace for the last couple of months. What is your view?
Well, you see, the point is this: the Chief Minister has made this recommendation to the Government of India based on certain things, and those certain things are very simple and clear. That there is definitely a decline in the violence levels, there is definitely a decline in the number of terrorists that there are in the valley, and there is definitely an upsurge in the quality of life that an ordinary Kashmiri today is leading because of the fact that there is not much of interference from anywhere. So why would he not recommend? I mean, after all, I would think that he will be wrong if he doesn't recommend that we must review the situation today as it was, because after all the act was invoked there in 1990. And now 21 years down the line, there has been enormous amount of change in the environment. So
but why do you think there is so much opposition to the demand, particularly from the security forces and the army?
The main thing is that if you could put the army in an CIA operation and environment, how do you expect them to be operating if they don't have these powers? So what I try to say is that the Armed Forces Special Powers Act and deployment of the army in CI of the kind that we are seeing in here and also we saw in the northeast, it is mandatory and it is critical that we have them both. So the army is feeling that in case we have to operate in areas where there is no cover or a legal cover to an off soldier or an officer or a JCO, if he's operating and he does something in normal course of the duty, he should be covered. If that kind of a guarantee is given, I don't think the army will have any objection at all. Now that kind of a guarantee is required more so in J&K because there are certain provisions in the Rendier Penal Code, the RPC, which is applicable in J&K compared to the rest of the country, that is the criminal CPC which is applicable there. Some provisions need to be highlighted and probably formalized that they will have the same protection as applicable to any other soldier outside the country. If that is guaranteed, I don't think the army should have any problem at all. The other thing is that perhaps the army is also wanting to play a little safe from the point of view of that should the situation get bad. Now to that there is I would like to say that how bad can the situation become? After all, when we started this and when this act was invoked in 1990, that time we had close to 10,000 terrorists in the valley. So with that magnitude of terrorists, the fervor that there was about so-called Azadi, the mood of the whole valley was different, and you had tons and tons and tons of ammunition and arms.
But now the situation is different.
It is totally different, and a common Kashmiri today is not definitely wanting any kind of violence at all. He is not talking of Azadi at all. So where is the question of having the same yardstick?
Also, if the situation worsens, the act could be brought back again.
Absolutely. I say that after all, who invoked it? We invoked it. The parliament invoked it. And if we feel at some point in time, maybe 6 months down the line or 8 months down the line, there is a need to sort of invoke it, why can't it be done?
You just referred to the Rendier Penal Code. Do you think there is need to bring about some kind of parity between the CRPC, the Criminal Procedure Code, and the Rendier Penal Code?
Insofar as the legal protection available to the Indian Army is concerned, yes. Other things we don't go into it because then those Article 370 other things come into being and come into play, which we will not talk about.
Referring to the demand or the opposition to the withdrawal of the act from these 4 districts, there is a feeling that all those who are opposing this demand, they have some kind of a vested interest.
Politics, that's what. You see, after all, what has the Chief Minister done? He has just recommended that to the Government of India, to the Home Ministry, that please review it and take it out. And he has given, well, maybe that was premature, given assurance to his people that, well, it will be revoked in these 4 districts. But what is the harm in at least discussing it?
Besides politics, there is also a feeling that when the army wants the act to stay, the army itself has some kind of a vested interest.
Well, I would not go into that. Why? What interest could they have? I tell you what, it's like this. Let me tell you one thing. By deploying every unit or every brigade in the valley for CI operation or anywhere else, not in the valley, anywhere else also for that matter, you are losing on training. The Army's primary role is to prepare for conventional operations. Let me tell you one thing, my own formation, 16 Corps or 10 year earlier, because of the fact or even Western Command, wherever troops are deployed in CI, the training suffers drastically. Even if it is a mundane thing like ROP or corner protection, even then you can't train. So your conventional operations take a big blow.
Jal Sabru, exactly. This is exactly the reason why people say that the army has developed some kind of a vested interest. They are referring to gallantry awards, they are referring to promotions,
well,
and all that.
If I would say it is not totally wrong because you do get gallantry awards, so I would not say that after the army continues that they continue getting gallantry awards. But then it is at what level?
What about the allegation that these 4 grenade attacks just on the eve of Diwali may have been engineered by the army personnel themselves to ensure that the army stays there?
I think this statement or the thought also is as ridiculous. It is simply disgusting, actually I would say that, because after all, if the army wants something, why should they have to resort to a mean thing like this?
But Jal Sabru, here is a senior National Conference leader who is saying this.
Saying it's unfortunate. I think it is probably it was exuberance or what it is, and he was, I think when the media said that he's rolled back his words, perhaps that's the right thing to do. But what is worse is that now justifying it, that the army is hurting us just because I have hurt nobody, so what I said is not wrong. I don't think that really, I think it could best be avoided, and I think the chief has given a very nice reply that he said that I don't think my comments are even deserved for a statement like this. It is wrong to think about it.
Jal Sabru, you've been a formation commander, in fact formation commander at different levels in J&K. You come from the valley yourself. What is your opinion? Is it time to actually not only withdraw the act from certain areas, but also thin out the army from some of the interior areas and beef up the deployment?
See, I have always been saying this, and I have said it when I was the Corps Commander, 16 Corps, which covered the area south of Pir Panjal, that because of the fact that the things are now improving and we have considerable reduction in the militancy in these areas, particularly in the south of Punjab, there is definitely a case to vacate certain areas. And I did that. I did that because my thrust areas those days were the line of control, because I had made it my QRA that I will not allow infiltration to come. Because I am of the firm belief that in J&K, if the things have improved, it is only because the infiltration has come down. Whether it is by the lack of support by the Pakistanis or whatever, the fact remain on ground is that the infiltration is less. Because you have to understand one thing, that a man, trained or not trained, can come into India from anywhere. He can come from Gujarat, Rajasthan, anywhere. He can come from Nepal, Bhutan, anywhere. He can come even by air. But what can't come by all these routes is the Asla. Asla is the actual arms and ammunition. Now for that, they have to get it from between the Chenab and the NJ 984 somewhere or the other. For that, you have to ensure that you have a foolproof, absolute foolproof infiltration grid. We have enough troops, mind you, to be able to do that. In case you were able to thin out some of these RR units that we have in the valley, we have what, 32, 33 of them there now. I am quite certain that they've already done it. It's already been done also, I must say that in the last year or so they have done it, but more needs to be done. It will do two things. It will give the elbow space to the local population to feel that, well, they are enough. To an extent, you know, the visibility of the stimulation of the army is not there so much, yet maintain enough troops there by way of, where there are two companies, you can have one or even half. I would say that there is a battalion, you can definitely do with a company or two of RR, mainly to have the so-called grid intact and yet keep the patrolling and all going.
But then the argument is that all this will weaken the military grid, and it is the grid which has actually brought about a turnaround in the situation.
You have to understand that the military grid was created when there were, as I said, 10,000 terrorists in the valley. You needed troops at every kilometer or two. Today there are just 250 in the entire J&K state as per the MAC figure, so it's 300. Now for that, do you need a company every 3 to 4 kilometers? I don't think so. The point is that there's definitely a case that we need to thin out, but we can't thin out from the point of view of that they should be the troops which will do thin out, they should be in close proximity. So the best is put them on the line of control, which is happening.
You've been watching the situation in Kashmir for a number of years now. Do you think the Jammu and Kashmir police is better equipped, better trained than what it was, let's say, 10 years ago?
I would say 15 years ago it was bad. In 95, 90s, mid-90s, it had become almost defunct organization. But to the credit of the J&K police, I must say that in the last decade or so, particularly the last 7-8 years, they have come of age and they have really performed, I would say, reasonably, well.
Jalsapur, lastly, if the act is to be withdrawn or not to be withdrawn, who should have the final say? The Unified Command, the state government, the MOD or the Home Ministry?
You see, it's you have to understand the act is a central government act. Only the central government can revoke it. Nobody else can. And central government, it is obviously the Home Ministry. But definitely they can't do it on their own, just as they did not impose it on their own. After all, it came on a recommendation.
So whose advice should the central government follow?
I would say everybody. You see, Chief Minister is one and he has done it, and there's so much flag before it has even been discussed by the Home Ministry. The Army certainly yes. But at the same time, if there is a kind of a discussion held on the things that what are the negatives that can happen, what is the maximum that can happen, will the nation just disintegrate if we remove the act from these two I don't think that's going to happen.
Right. Thank you very much. Army's fears on the withdrawal of the act from a part of the state are perhaps misplaced. Here we'll take a short break. When we return, we'll discuss the same issue of Special Powers Act in Jammu and Kashmir with two other officers, Lieutenant General J.S. Dhillon and Brigadier Bhupinder Singh. Welcome back. Should Armed Forces Special Powers Act be withdrawn from 4 districts of J&K as the Chief Minister is demanding? Lieutenant General Dhillon feels strongly against it. General Dhillon, you've been the Corps Commander in Srinagar. Do you think the time has come to withdraw the Armed Forces Special Powers Act from those areas which have enjoyed comparative peace for the last couple of years now?
You see, what has to be understood is that valley is in a radius of about 100 kilometers plus minus, and within that area you can't have pockets of where one act is admissible, other places it is not admissible, and the traveling time is so less that you can move from one to another area, you can just walk across.